All right, in this video we're going to factor quadratic polynomials by grouping. And for the most part they're all the same process, but I've got 4 different examples here that highlight the different possibilities you might encounter. So when looking at the problem, factoring 1x squared plus 9x plus 20, what we'll need to do is to make sure there are no common terms throughout the problem that we can factor out. Now this one, the 1, the 9, and 20 have nothing in common, and not all of them have a variable. So we're done with that first part. And now what I suggest we do is we label A, B, and C. So in this, A is 1, B is 9, and C is 20. Okay, so we'll need to create our t-chart, and our t-chart is like this. And on the left side, we do A times C, which in this case is 1 times 20, or 20. And on the right side, we do B, and that's 9. So we are looking, on the right side, we are looking for factors of 20. And on the left side, we are looking for 2 numbers, those same numbers, to also add to 9. So to start off, we will just start listing some factors of 20. So 2 times 10 is 20, and 2 plus 10 is 12, which is not what we want. Fair enough. Okay, and you can list as many as it takes. Generally, sometimes you can get them on the first try. So I know the answer is it's 4 times 5, because 4 plus 5 is also equal to 9, and that's what we want. Okay, so we're going to take this answer of 9 over here, and we are going to, instead of the 9x that we had in the middle right here, we're going to use a 4x and a 5x because those add up to the middle number. This may seem weird, but all we are doing is undoing polynomial multiplication. So we have x squared plus 4x plus 5x plus 20. It doesn't matter if you write the 4x or the 5x, in which order you write them. Your end answer will be the same. The steps between now and the end will be slightly different. All right, so on the next step, which you can do up here, or you can do it on a separate line like I will do this time, is to group the first 2 terms and group the second 2 terms using parentheses. It looks like this. Parentheses, x squared plus 4x, close parentheses, plus 5x plus 20. Okay, and like I said, I would normally probably just do that in the previous line, but we're going to write it out as a separate step. Okay, so it's group the terms because it's factoring by grouping. So what we will want to do is we will want to see what certain terms have in common. So we're looking to see what those 2 terms have in common, and just by glancing at them, I can tell that they both have an x in common. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor that x out. I don't need that. Wrong pen. Alright, so I'm going to factor that x out. And it's very easy. We'll have x on the outside. Alright, so we take an x from x squared and we're left with an x, plus take an x away from 4x and we're left with a 4. Okay, we'll do the exact same thing for the next parentheses, and it's just a matter of what do those 2 terms right there have in common. Okay, now what we'll do is 5x and 20, they both have a 5 in common. So 5 parentheses, and when you divide both of those terms by 5, you get x plus 4. Okay, hopefully you've noticed we've written the same parentheses twice here and here, so we can factor that parentheses out. So when we do that, we will have x plus 4, and that will leave us with an x plus 5 as well. And that right there is your final answer. of factoring by grouping in the first problem. Okay, the second problem is very similar. We'll probably go a little bit faster, and so that by the end it's pretty quick and easy. So what we will want to do is we need to factor 4x squared plus 8x minus 12. Okay, now we need to check to see if there are any common factors. This one has a common factor. Okay, you know that because 4x, 8x, and minus 12 can all be divided by the same number, that number is 4. So I'm going to factor that 4 out. It becomes on the outside, and that leaves me with x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, so that doesn't always happen. In rare cases it does. That changes our a, b, and c. In this case, our a is equal to 1, our b is equal to 2, and our c is equal to a negative 3. Same process as the last problem. We're going to create our t-chart with a times c on the right and b on the left. So there are really only two numbers that multiply to a negative 3, and that is either a negative 1 times a positive 3, or it could be a positive 1 times a negative 3. Now I know that the second one I wrote down is not going to be correct, so I don't even need to try it. Negative 1 plus 3 is equal to 2, and that's what I want, so I'm good to go. Alright, so in the next line, it becomes 4 times x squared minus 1x plus 3x minus 3. Alrighty, it's going to look a little weird, but I group the first two terms and I group the second two terms. I'm going to factor out what they have in common. Truthfully, the 4 that's right here, okay, you can kind of leave that until the very end. It's not doing anything. It's just kind of hanging out in front. But I'll just keep writing it. It's not going to make that big of a deal. Alright, so question becomes is what do x squared and 1x have in common? Hopefully you notice they both have an x, and that leaves me with an x minus 1 when I take an x away from x squared and an x away from 1x. Plus sign. Now the question is what do a 3x and a 3 have in common? Well, they both have a 3. So I will factor out a 3. When I divide 3 by 3, I get 1x minus sign. And then when I divide 3 by 3, I get a minus 1. Okay, yet again, I've written the same parentheses twice. I've written it right here. And, oops, we don't need to do that. I wrote it right there. Wrote it right there, and I wrote it right there. Okay, so I can factor that parentheses out. So I have my 4, and I'm factoring out an x minus 1. And then what do I have left? I have x plus 3. I have my 2 factors. And so that is our final answer. 4 times x minus 1 times x plus 3. Okay, problem number 3. We'll look at this guy, 6x squared plus 13x plus 5. Okay, and we notice that they're 6, 13, and 5. They don't have any numbers in common. So they don't have anything to factor out. So I can go ahead and label A equals to 6, B equal to 13, and C equal to 5. Okay, now this one's set up a little difficult. With a little higher numbers, you know, A is no longer 1, and so we have a little bit of everything. Same process though. Set up our t-chart. A times C on the left side, and that's 30. And on the right side, it is 13. So I like to put down a wrong answer just so I'm showing some work here. How about 2 times 15, and then 2 plus 15, well that's 17, and that's not what I want. Okay, how about a right answer? I don't know, 3 times 10. It ends in 0, so it's divisible by 10, boom. Hey, 3 plus 10, that is equal to 13, And that's exactly what I want. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to split that middle term again, and I'm going to use those two numbers. So my polynomial will be 6x squared plus 3x plus 10 plus 5. Again, the next step is to group the first two terms together, group the second two terms together. Oops, I just noticed I forgot my x. All right, well, now we're going to look and we're going to say, hey, what do these two guys have in common? Well, they both got an x, that's for sure, and 3 can go into both of those. So I will take, erase that real quick. I will take a 3 and an x out of that first parentheses. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then let's see with them 1 and x when I take it out. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1. All right, now we go on to the next one. 10x and 5. They don't have an x, but a 10 and 5 can both be divided by 5. So I'll divide both of those by 5. That will be my common factor. So I go up here and I'm okay, plus 5. And now when I divide 10x by 5, that's going to give me 2x plus sign. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Have I written one parentheses more than once? I have. I factor that parentheses out. 2x plus 1 and 3x plus 5. And we are finished. It's usually one of your harder ones right there. Okay, last problem. So this problem is looking a little different because we only have 2 terms. But in reality, we kind of have 3 terms. Okay? This is really x squared plus 0x minus 49. But since we don't normally write that 0x plus or minus anyways, and we usually would just kind of write the minus 49, it looks like that. Okay? The process is exactly the same. A equals 1, B equals 0, C equals 49. That's a negative 49. All right, negative 49 on the left, and then a 0 on the right. When I'm thinking 49, only one thing comes to mind. Okay, that process that comes to mind is a negative 7 times positive 7. And a negative 7 plus positive 7 is indeed 0. And so that's what I want. Excellent. So instead of 0 right here in the middle, okay, instead of this guy right here in the middle, I'm going to use these two numbers over here. And my numbers will work out to be, it will be x squared minus 7x plus 7x minus 49. After this, it's just the same thing as the first 3 problems. Group the first 2 and the second 2 together. Okay, question becomes is what do those 2 guys have in common? Well, they both have an x. And that's it. So I'm going to factor out that x in front. X squared divided by x is x minus 7, close parentheses, plus sign. All right, we get to the 7, and then we get to the 49. Well, they don't have an x in common, so I don't have to worry about that. But I do know that 7 goes into 7 and 49. So I'm going to factor out a 7. And when I do that, I'm left with x minus 7. Once again, I have written the same parentheses twice. So that guy gets factored out. All right, it is x minus 7. What do I have left? I have an x plus 7. And what do you know? I'm finished. Final answer. Those are 4 different examples of how you factor by grouping, and then hopefully that solves all your problems.